We are finally live. Thank you so much, Nicole, for joining me today. You look amazing as usual.
Thanks, Maritza. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. So, as people are going to be joining, since we just went live, as you join our live stream, please let us know if the audio is working okay, where you are watching from, and if we're good to go because we have really exciting things going on. Okay. So it looks like sound is on. Someone is joining us from YouTube.
Well,
And we're going to be broadcasting this also in our Facebook group page. Today's topic is so important: effective marketing strategies for dental startups and growing practices, your non-negotiables. So thank you so much again, Nicole, for joining us today. I'm excited to be able to ask you questions and really dive into this this pain point for all of us, not just dentists, but business owners in general.
Yep.
And for those of you who are joining us, before I make a proper introduction, I just want to tell you why I reached out to Nicole and why it is so important for you to watch this live until the end. Okay. So just correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I have as your credibility and why I look at you as someone that people need to pay attention to when it comes to marketing their dental practices. So, Nicole is an industry leading marketing strategist specializing in growing dental practices and groups with custom evidence based marketing programs. Okay. Nicole has an extensive background in advertising with a career in the ad agency space already. So, listen to this. She managed marketing strategies for brands like Bank of America, 7-Eleven, and HEB. And then in 2012, she transitioned from the corporate world over to dentistry. I guess she found a need
Never
somehow.
look back. Yep.
And she became the marketing director for DFW Family Dentistry. Not only that, then in 2014, the 7 locations sold and Nicole launched Breakaway Marketing. Okay. This is an extension of Breakaway Practice Support Services and DSO. So, as the marketing director of Breakaway, Nicole oversaw the branding and marketing for all the entities that Breakaway directed, and she oversaw 300 dental practices nationwide. And this is where it gets tricky because I have a similar background with starting with a company and then expanding and selling to a DSO and then merging and creating so much growth and opportunities and then seeing this need already. So in 2018, you saw a need. You began privately consulting for practices to share your insights and support them with this exclusive marketing services that you had learned and implemented. You brought over from from Bank of America, these large corporations, over to the DSO world, and now you decided it's time for me to take my knowledge and help those with more needs. And so after 2 years of consulting, you decided that it was time to create a marketing agency that could genuinely meet the needs of those dentists across the country and pioneer a new standard of dental marketing, a true partner in growth. And then there was the birth of Transcendental. So
Right.
I am honored and I am so excited and happy that you have shared with us that you are giving me the time to be able to answer questions on behalf of our clients. And as you're joining us, please make sure that if you do have any questions, you let us know in the comments. So welcome. Tell us about yourself before I dive in and I start asking you questions because I have so many.
Yeah, well, first of all, that's the best introduction for myself I've ever heard. I couldn't do it better. So thank you so much. I'm like, is that me? Did I do those things? But yeah, so it's been quite the journey in dentistry. It's my passion. And just as you said, I've, really committed myself through Transcendental and consulting since 2018 and really trying to bring these values and these philosophies to the private space and, to more of the 1 to 2 location practices. Specifically startups that, really don't have that business acumen and background to be able to put together, an effective marketing strategy, or maybe they just don't know where to start, who to trust. And so, when founding Transcendental, we really had 3 brand promises. One is to help private practices transcend dental norms. There's this stigma, especially with startups. It's like, I'm not going to pay myself for 2 to 4 years. I'm not going to break even. I'm going to be in the hole. And it doesn't have to be that way, right? And then, transcending industry benchmarks. I think the average new patient flow for a startup, right, is anywhere between 15 to 25 new patients, where ours are indexing somewhere in the 60s. Just these brand promises that sort of helped us cultivate the product that we're delivering and the ways in which we help private practice owners. So that's the gist of how I got here and why we exist. And now we're currently serving, I believe it's over 100 clients and I think around 130 locations. And we have to move about 25. So yeah.
That's amazing. Just so that everyone knows, in addition to being a great marketing strategist and helping so many clients, one of the things that I'm drawn to you and that I admire so much about you is how you're able to manage running a business, having a beautiful family, and staying active with all of their activities. So those are one of the things that we have in common, that we're always trying to catch up on things. And it's like one of us is with our kids, the other one is doing something, and being able to just deliver so much value. And while at the same time, it's such a challenge for us to manage growing a family and being a wife and being a mother and doing so many things all at the same time. So all the credit to you.
Thank you.
And again, this is in dentistry. I think that for those doctors who are out there, one of the biggest things, and I have 3 questions that I wanted to personally ask you on behalf of my clients, because these are questions that are always coming my way. And I'm encouraging doctors, as you're joining us, we're broadcasting this through YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Ask her questions. I mean, she's been in the industry for so long and she's seen a lot. And so any questions that you may have, please let us know in the comments. If you're watching live or if you're watching the replay, just make sure that you leave it in the comments. We'll get you her information so that you can pick her brain. But in the meantime, we discussed, as we were going and planning to do this live event, I said, there are certain, to me, because when we have a dentist is looking to start their own practice.
Yeah.
And in business in general, there are, I think, 3 criteria that we have to meet in order for us to make it successful. Number 1, we have to find a product or service that people want or need, right? We have to check that box before we launch our companies. The second one, they have to figure out, that the product and service that people want or need, they have the money for, or how they're going to pay for it. And in dentistry, it becomes almost the business model. And we're going to touch a little bit on that, because I think it's so important. But then ultimately, you need to be able to present that product or service to the public.
Right.
And years ago in dentistry, I think that, we have many years ago, there was one dentist or a few handful of practices, and the dentist or the doctor in the town was the sought out to person, and they would be like rejecting people because they were so busy and they were in such high demand. But as the years have gone by, you see that it is more and more difficult for you to start a business and be able to sustain it. And in my personal observation, I've seen that a lot of dentists that are great clinicians feel, and there are a lot of business owners out there that feel like, I'm going to set up shop and people are going to find me. And they take an x-ray. I had this one dentist that she was an amazing endodontist. And when I was a dental assistant, she used to be like, Maritza, look at this x-ray. It's like a textbook. And I'm like, and he's like a textbook. And we had so much going on in the back.
Right.
And when she went out on her own to start her own practice, it's just like, it takes a lot of time because people get to experience you on the chair. But what happens? How do you get people to come to you? So my first question to you is, what, in your view, in all of these years of experience and personal and, professional observation, what do you feel are the non-negotiables for dental startups?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to touch on first, before I answer the question, what you mentioned about like the landscape changing. It's interesting, just in the last 12 years that I've been in this industry, the changes that have happened and the transformation that's happened. And there's a combination of variables causing that, right? With the pandemic specifically, and just the, path that the dental industry is on as far as like DSO roll-ups and acquisitions and mergers and things like that. The climate and the competitive landscape has just changed drastically. And so practice owners are really having to get creative and rethink and prioritize things they didn't prioritize before. Like, you're not just a clinician anymore, you're the CEO of your practice. And how are you going to make sure that you're reaching your business objectives and that your practice can thrive? So that's, component one. The second is the patient psychology and purchase path has changed drastically. Before it was like, who's the best, most credentialed dentist in town, right? Who's got the creds, who's got the CE, who's got, the, word of mouth and referrals and things like that. And who's been in the business, for 20 to 30 years in the community and has their name up on the sign, right? It's not that way anymore. They're, which is why DSOs are doing so well. They're looking for an experience. They're looking for a brand affinity. They're not just looking to go, get their teeth cleaned, or, get Invisalign or whatever. I mean, yes, they want the dental treatment. There's a need there, but in addition to the dental treatment, you better show up with the experience. You can't just provide the clinical side. It doesn't work like that anymore. So I think those are important considerations in addition to, we're going to talk obviously about the marketing strategy and the non-negotiables, but just being aware of the market you're entering into is so huge. And I tell my practice owners all the time, because dentists typically skip this step. They'll put some numbers together for the bank, right, for lending. But I know you do this with your clients, Maritza, but a business plan is a non-negotiable. I did it for Transcendental, right? You have to have a business plan before you dive headfirst into this. And that business plan comes from you and your heart and your vision. And it takes that and makes it tangible. And
100%.
The ability to execute on that vision, right? So that's, I think those are important considerations before you start even thinking about marketing. Do you have your business plan in place? Because you can't develop a marketing strategy without defining first what your business objectives are and who you want to be to the market, and understanding the competitive landscape. If you're surrounded by DSOs, you're not going to win on price. You're not going to win on hours. So what can you win on, right? Those considerations. Now, as far as the non-negotiables, the way Transcendental, our philosophy and methodology really stems from my background in big brand advertising. When I got into dentistry, it became very apparent to me quickly how behind the times it was in terms of marketing, data, business insights, and specifically so much that it's like, the whole marketing approach in dentistry was like, let's throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. I'm going to try this for a day, and then it doesn't work in a day. And so I'm going to try this, versus like changing the variables in the strategy. Maybe I'm talking to the wrong person. Maybe I'm saying the wrong thing, right? Maybe the creative's off. But it's like, does direct mail work? You see those posts on the Facebook groups, and a practice will throw out, hey, does direct mail work? Hey, do Google ads work? Is SEO necessary? Is it even real? You see these questions. It's like, but we don't know anything about your business, and you know nothing about the people that are about to answer. And the marketing strategy is really driven by the business itself, and
by the business itself.
So it's different. Yeah.
This is. I'm taking notes, and I hope everyone watching the replay is doing the same. But I just want to highlight the things that stick to me, because I look at myself in my own journey and the difference in the landscape, as you mentioned, and how I create a strategy for my clients, where I have to tell them all the time, do not listen to the people that are giving advice in social media, because it's like giving birth to your business is like giving birth to a child. Right. And yes, your mom, your aunts, your cousins, everyone that's had a child is going to have an opinion on how you should do like your things.
Baby up later, the baby will sleep later. That's not gonna happen.
So these are the things that, yes, everyone that has experience has something valuable to give.
Right.
But you have to hone into your own strategy, your own philosophy, and you start doing that by the first non-negotiable that you shared, which is developing your personal and business plan.
Right.
Did I get that right?
Yep.
Now, another thing that touching on this last, question, you mentioned being aware of the market and the changes in the landscape.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally can relate to this. Again, I started my career in 1998, and Facebook became a thing in 2004 when it was first launched. And for me, as an office manager, going around the offices, I was very used to the guerrilla marketing strategy, where I would go knocking on my referral sources, and I would just create my, letter, and with my letterhead, and like in a welcome letter, or just creating connections, which is still effective today. But I started my career in dentistry, and you mentioned something, that when you transition into dentistry, you notice that we were outdated. Like, it was just like we were behind on time.
Yeah.
And I have to say that personally, when Facebook became a thing and social media, I was one of the, like, a late kind of what's the word I'm looking for, like, adopter,
Yeah.
because I had a misconception about being visible in social media. I felt like that is for people that want to be followed. Like, who follows me? I literally had an office manager from a practice a couple of years ago when I started consulting, and she was like, Maritza, I'm following you. And I'm like, and I literally just felt like,
I'm
where?
still not used to it. I'm like,
It is something that for us old timers, and I'm an old soul, it's almost like it takes time for us to adjust. But it's so important that what you said, you need to get into business aware of the changes. And a lot of my clients, to be honest with you, they're immigrants like myself. English is their second language.
Right.
And we don't necessarily grew up in even our home countries, where we had access to, like, all these gadgets and cameras and things. Like, we took pictures maybe for Christmas. So it's a different, landscape. And I think that it's crucial what you said. We need to come in and adjust. And part of the business model has to be doing that market research, competitive research, to be able to figure out, if you're competing with DSOs, it's not the pricing, it's got to be you. And your message has something important to give. So you gave us one of the are there any other non-negotiables?
Yeah. So I kind of started talking about, but didn't finish, the philosophy around Transcendental. So we believe, and I pull this from my big brand advertising background, in omni-channel integrated marketing, right? So, and I think that's where, dentistry historically has kind of fallen short, because it's very much that compartmentalized approach. Like, I'm going to do direct mail over here, and my message is all over the place, and my brand's all over the place, and I'm trying all these tactics sort of ad hoc, and there's no real strategy or synergy behind what I'm doing. When in reality, the way a marketing program, succeeds is by being cohesive and integrated, right? So, when you think about creating your marketing plan, it shouldn't just be this one thing I'm going to try and see if it works, right? It really should be a multi-touch point strategy. And so we believe in, first, before even, touching the tactics or the execution, really defining the goals. Like, what are the business objectives? Are you wanting to drive, like, large cases? Are you needing to put, cheeks in seats? Like, what is the objective really? Are you just looking to build the brand, because all of those objectives are going to have different approaches. The strategy is going to look different practice to practice, and by the stage of the practice. And so, Transcendental really develops a roadmap based on business objectives. We help you clearly define your patient persona or avatar, and then from there create that target demographic that we use in all our marketing and targeting, and define your message and your why, and sort of the storytelling component of what differentiates you in the market. And so once you have a really clear defined message with a really established audience, and you know exactly who you're talking to and what you're going to say and why they need to hear it, right? Like, you have to solve their problem. What is their problem, and how are you going to solve it for them? And once you have that package, and you know what you're trying to achieve, and how to deliver it, then from there you determine, okay, now what are the touch points? What are the channels, the tactics of communication?
I see.
And so when we're talking about the non-negotiables for those tactics, it really is going to depend on those objectives. But for startups, typically what we like to utilize is a combination of digital and print. So I'm one of the only marketing, advisors that still believes in the power of direct mail. Most marketing companies will laugh you off if you ask them about direct mail, but I get on my soapbox when it comes to direct mail. It works for some of your clients. It's worked really well for. Does it work for every single practice? No, but no marketing tactic does work for every single practice the same way. So we use direct mail for startups as sort of that shotgun early on to fill the schedule as the digital marketing is sort of ramping up. The site is starting to index and search. The paid ads are optimizing. The algorithm's kind of catching up to what we're doing online. The print really allows us to fill the schedule early on and just let the community know you're there and why you're different, right? So I still firmly believe in direct mail. Our campaigns average about 19 to 20 new patients per drop. So they're effective.
That's
still. The margins are definitely less, right, than digital, but still a very effective strategy. And then we also we're firm believers in search, both paid and organic. Dentistry is a need state service. It is clinical, it's healthcare, right? Which is different than consumer-based product. And so you have to think, with it being such a need state industry, the tactics that are typically going to perform the best are going to be those warm or hot lead strategies where you already know they're seeking your services, which is why Google and search engines in general are such an important component of a dental startup program. So I think a lot of people, think SEO is this ambiguous thing, this mystical unicorn that marketers have made up to charge them money. And I would say for 70% of vendors, it is that way. But there very much is effectiveness in a proper SEO strategy done well and ethically. So our non-negotiables for our startups and what's included in our sort of Keystone startup program is a combination of direct mail, digital advertising, both display and paid search, and then organic search engine optimization is really where we focus all our long-term efforts. So that's sort of the combo we typically see, but that can vary practice to practice, like I said, depending on the objectives.
For 100%. And again, as a reminder, this is after you have checked off the box of your business and having clarity on the objectives and who your audience is and what message you want to get out there and how you're going to attract them. This is great. So my next question, or a follow-up question to that, is how do you adjust the marketing plans based on, because this is a reality that we're all having to live by. Mm-hmm. Everyone wants to, like, the second criteria that I firmly believe in order for you to launch a successful business is, again, number one, you have to have a product and service that people need and want. Mm-hmm. Dentistry checks that box all the way. But mm-hmm. the second one is, how are people going to pay for your product or service? Mm-hmm. And in dentistry, we have this, this evil, which is having to work with dental insurances. So how do you mm-hmm. adjust a marketing plan based on insurance participation for a dental practice whose business model has to incorporate working with dental insurances?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's a topic that I'm finding myself discussing more and more and more, probably more than usual. And when we, going back to where we kind of started in terms of the climate changes, obviously insurance is a huge trend that we're seeing change over time. I mean, when before the minority of my practices were fee for service, it's becoming more of an even split these days. I mean, more startups are going out of network or fee for service, which is interesting, and I think there's definitely trade-offs on both. I don't think same with marketing tactics, right? I don't think you can say this is the right way and this is the wrong way. It depends on your market. It depends on your practice, your goals. It depends on the doc,
Who you will be serving as well. And how are they going to be covering or paying for your services?
Right. Because sometimes I'll see, somebody will be like, I'm going fee for service, and it's a very, 50% Medicaid market. And it's like, I don't know, let's revisit that conversation, So just having those considerations, but how we really address that, one is I am a huge proponent of membership plans, which are becoming more and more popular. I think every practice should offer them, but I think for fee-for-service practices, it's a non-negotiable. If you're an out-of-network practice, it's a non-negotiable. You know, if you only take Delta Dental Premier or whatever it is, like, you should still be offering it. There's so many benefits to membership plans. You know, we partner with Clear, and we also, you know, can help practices who want to build that out internally. We support them in that venture as well. But having those membership plans in place provides so many benefits. So one, you're increasing the retention and the life cycle of your patient. So those patients that come in for one appointment, they become inactive or dormant, you don't hear from them again. That really reduces that rate, because you're collecting an annual registration fee up front, something that's on autopilot, recurring, something you don't even have to think about, right? And you're really, most of the benefits of a membership plan are more valuable than what they're getting with their policy. And it just takes
100%
the patient on that for them to be like, well, forget that. I don't need that anymore. And so, yeah, it puts a lot more pressure on the practice to have those conversations and be that educator. But in the long run, it's a huge benefit for the practice. So retention, case acceptance, it's proven statistically to dramatically increase case acceptance. So yeah, membership plans are a big part of that. And then promoting your value props. And so we talked about like not being able to compete on rate or price if you're surrounded by DSO locations. The same thing goes for that. Yeah, the same thing goes for if you're not a super insurance friendly practice, making sure that you're really highlighting why they should pay the premium price. Like, why should they go to you versus the practice that accepts their insurance next door? What are those differentiators, and call those out, right? Is it the patient experience? Is it the convenience? Is it your credentials? Is it the technology? We have robotic dentistry practices that offer something in an entire metro of Houston that no one else does. Find that and say it, right? And so just promoting those types of things. And then, we have our own like technical things we do as well. Obviously, for any digital marketing, if we have a fee-for-service practice, we're probably going to exclude insurance-based keyword searches, right?
I see. So you actually do have a strategy that goes back to the mechanics of how you are targeting the audience.
And the demographic targeting is going to look different too. So, if you're going for a more high-end affluent area, fee for service, we're going to target a very different income bracket than we would for like a Medicaid practice or, a practice that is super PPO friendly. So the income might change, the, regional targeting might change depending on, what we know about the households in that area. If it's, sort of an employee-based area versus a retirement community. I mean, we consider all of that and really develop strategies around that.
I love that.
Yeah. And so adjusting the income parameters, the keyword targeting is crucial. Another thing we can do is even like target people in your area who go to like the Delta Dental website.
I see.
So we know users going to this website, we can hit them with an ad, right? Because they fit that persona. So those are just a few of the things we can do. Is it 100% accurate all the time? No. Especially with data privacy laws online now, there's not as much information as we can get. But there are things we can do to sort of hone in on, what your insurance compatibility is and what that patient looks like.
This is so interesting that you're touching on that subject because, for instance, one of the biggest challenges for doctors opening in very saturated areas has to do with their, demographics or patient to doctor ratio, or they may come in and they're offering bread and butter dentistry and there's no specialty involved. And so they have a really difficult time trying to figure out how can I attract patients and compete. Mm-hmm. And then this is why it's so important that you go back to your core values and the things that you stand for. And that is sort of like the foundation of that business plan, and that, and the business plan has different components of it. And I think I did a whole live on the things that you need to include on a business plan to make sure that you stay focused, that you are creating a strategy that is true to your vision and your values, and that you hire the right people to help you also become an extension of that, of what it is that you want to do and serve the people that you want to serve. Absolutely. Because again, I've seen offices with an 800 to 1 patient to doctor ratio in an insurance driven, area really succeed and build profitable practices. And so it all comes down to, again, that clarity and to your point, surrounding yourself with a team of advisors that know what they're doing and do it well and have proven systems, and work with other, experts in the field that have the same foundation structure on how they want you to succeed. So that's super important. I love that what you said about membership programs, because I teach my clients, insurance is secondary to care.
Right.
And it's a means to an end, because you want to get patients, but the first is not the most important selling your practice. When those patients are coming in on the day to, like on the month, on the recare, is when they're telling you that you've met their expectations, that you've gained their business, right? Because a lot of marketing companies or dental offices look at the leads and the new patients that are being scheduled, and then they fail to make sure that they meet those expectations for those patients and have a strategy in place to maintain that relationship long term. So definitely the membership programs are extremely important. I encourage my clients to do it. But the case acceptance, which you touched on, is super important as well. And there has to be so many different, components to it to make it work. But highlighting your why and how you do things differently when you're in a saturated area is extremely important, because people want to experience you as a person before they experience you as a clinician. And you have, we have so much to offer when we're passionate about what we do. So, so that's great about the right marketing strategy. What I took away from this is you have ways and systems to be able to create a separate strategy for an area that wants to focus more on avoiding an insurance, if you will, or targeting a more affluent area so that you can gain more of those membership program patients. Is that what I understood?
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. Now, my next question is, how can a dentist determine the right marketing plan for their dental practice?
Yeah, so it goes back to those objectives, right? So earlier, I kind of gave you the examples of like brand awareness versus patient acquisition. So a brand awareness strategy is going to be very different, right, than a prospect acquisition strategy. Prospect acquisition or patient acquisition is really going to be more about one-to-one marketing. So it's putting that targeted display ad in front of that patient while they're browsing the internet, or putting a mailer in their mailbox, based on everything you know about them and what you need to say to them, right? That is going to be more acquisition driven, whereas like a brand awareness strategy, because a lot of people will be like, hey, should I do radio? Should I do billboards? Well, those tactics are great for brand awareness, which is why you typically see large brands utilizing them.
Okay.
But for a small business owner, that's not the best place to put your budget, because to be honest, you need patients now, right? So like you're not going to get a high volume of patients from roadside impressions. You're just not. You're not going to get a high volume of patients from a radio spot. Most people don't even listen to the radio anymore, So just kind of understanding, there's different marketing tactics that accomplish different things. And so you have to understand what your goals are in order to understand which ones to utilize. A lot of docs, like social media is the big thing now, right? Like that's always everybody's first question. And I'm, again, a little bit of an outlier, because to me, I really think the focus should be in the, sort of warm lead space, which is going to be your Google advertising, SEO, and then direct mail. Whereas on the social side, although it's very, very important and you need to have social presence organically when it comes to like paid social advertising, for us in our agency, the data just doesn't support a lot of it. It works for, probably 50% of our practices, it works really well for, and the other 50% are typically disappointed in the results. And the reason for that is, of all the tactics in the dental marketing space, social media ads have the highest no-show rate. Why?
That I can, yes.
You have the same data. So that's our data. And what, our hypothesis really, or what I believe, is that because those are cold leads and they're people that haven't, dentistry is research-based. They're going to look around at other practices. They're going to read about the treatment they're interested in. They're going to read about the insurance, compatibility. So it takes a lot of effort to book a dental appointment. more than an impulse purchase on Facebook, right? Because when you think
Yes.
about the things that you convert on, like us, for instance, I bought a pair of shoes on Instagram this week that I shouldn't have bought, right? I bought a bag. Like we shouldn't be doing that.
But we do not schedule our visits for our kids.
But I'm not looking to
from a pop-up on Facebook, not at all.
Yeah.
These are informed decisions that we make as consumers. So we have to create that. Yes, I totally get it.
So the patient experience we typically see on the social media side is that you can run these social ads as brand awareness, getting your message out there, and maybe you'll convert some new patients. But ultimately, what we're finding is the way the end-to-end experience works on social media is if they get your ad, they're going to go maybe check your page out, right?
Yes.
Maybe you'll read your Google reviews, and then they'll maybe come back to it. But it's not, to me, a high volume driver. And the lead quality always seems to be a little less. And I think it's because they haven't done their research. They're not as committed as somebody who has already established the need state. And when you're putting these ads in front of your community, through the social media platforms, you don't even know if they're looking for a new dentist. You don't know if they have a dental need. If you're putting an implant, ad in front of them, I mean, hopefully you've done your targeting or your marketing company's done their targeting to at least put it in front of the right people, but you don't know if they have, missing teeth or failing teeth. You don't know, right? Yeah. Whereas in the algorithm space, through search engine marketing, we know what they're looking for and we can talk to them.
I think that this is a very important point that you're touching on, because I get dentists always asking me, what about social media and social media presence? And they feel like they're missing out unless they are putting something out there. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, they need to understand, or, all of us in business, generally speaking, that it's for brand awareness and you want to be able to grow it organically. It has happened to me in the past where you're trying to outsource it to have someone run your pages or something. And it's just not your message. It's not coming across organically because it is not necessarily you doing the content creation. And so it becomes tricky, because on social media, I read something recently where it says, hey, it's social. And it's more like, if you want to have people gain a little bit more awareness about you as an individual. I was at the Dental Nachos event, and one of the speakers, he was just great. And he was talking about a case study for this dentist that had a dog. And then he created a Facebook account for the dog. And then patients would come in that were his patients and said, how's your pet doing? Because there was a relational type of, conversion with the patients that were already active and or potential leads that he was able to do this, but it was more organically. And I think that at least in some of the cases and instances where I see is the doctors just want to put something out there. And I am also guilty of this myself, where it's almost like I am not posting. So my business is just not gaining the awareness that it needs. And you have to be mindful and not just, that's my unsolicited advice. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not.
Yeah, I agree. And, I want to clarify, like, it's not that there's not value behind that, right? Like, there absolutely is. You want to be active on your pages.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's where I'm getting that. It's important that you're active, but it has to be intentional. And we need to know the difference. It's not for targeting leads. It's so that as people are doing research, they're able to see that this is the face behind the company, that I go to their website as they're doing their due diligence to make their informed decisions, to get on the phone and try to get, to schedule a visit to come and experience you. It is a tool for you to warm them as leads. Is that?
Yeah, no, that's completely right. It's a brand building tool. It's a storytelling tool. And even with the paid ad side of social media, it accomplishes those same things, right? Like, you can run a lead gen campaign where you're trying to capture form submissions or get booked appointments or things like that. And you're going to get those submissions. The problem is, what we find is that when you go to call them back to schedule, or, they're trying to schedule through Messenger or whatever, they typically ghost. Like,
yes. Like when we put stuff on our cart, like, I'm going to get to this. And then, because you're like, we're just, I'm already past this page.
Yeah. So we utilize social media. Absolutely. We offer social media management. We offer social media advertising. The education component really, though, there is, please don't expect, 50 new patients to come from those things a month, right? We got to focus our energy over here to make sure the new patients are coming in, and use this supplementally to build the brand and create the awareness that will make these tactics convert even better. Same thing as like Google reviews, right? It's all about reputation building, having a presence, engaging with the community.
That's
so awesome. And the other thing I wanted to talk about when we're talking about like, how do we know what strategies to go with outside of the business objectives, it's important to look at your schedule. So maybe you're not a brand new practice. Maybe you've been open a year. What does your schedule look like, right? So we look at capacity of a practice. We consider anything, like if I can call and get it on the books within 2 weeks, I would consider that an open capacity practice. If it takes me 2 weeks to 4 weeks, maybe even 6 to get on the schedule, that's closed capacity. And so an open capacity practice, really should be focusing wide net. It's volume, it's get that revenue, streamline in. And, on the closed capacity side, it's about increasing the value per patient through the life cycle of the patient. In other words, production, right? Production per patient. So, okay, now the schedule's full, but like, how do we weed out some of these, maybe like non-profitable patients, or the kind of dentistry we don't like doing, or whatever, and how do we replace them and replenish that on the schedule with quality patients that we want to see and the kind of dentistry we want to do. And so those two strategies are very, very different, right? And so for most of our startups, because that's, the majority of the practices you and I deal with, we really focus on that open capacity strategy, which is volume, right? Mm-hmm. We want people on your schedule because I want you to have a revenue stream, and I want you to be able to break even as quickly as possible. And then from there, when we feel solid, let's switch up the strategy and talk about how we can grow profit, right? So that's typically our approach, and we typically see that transition happen around the year mark.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, that's typically fair. So I love this. So we have you look at the capacity, it's a wide enclosed capacity based on how far ahead their schedule is booked. 2 weeks out, then it's open. I mean, you need to schedule patients. So our main priority is to get patients through the door. So you open up, kind of like all the resources, if you will. Yeah. And once they are solid or scheduled, once they've breaking even, and now the issue becomes, how do we strategically focus on delivering more high quality dental services or more profitable services, and either consider, create other marketing strategies and or their solutions. Maybe they need to hire hygienists. I have dentists that start their practices, and 4 or 5 months out, we need to have conversations about, it's time for you to bring on a hygienist, because
that's typically the benchmark we see timeline wise as well.
Exactly. So those are the things that are so important. Yes.
Always like, yes.
Yes. So then basically, this answers my next question, which is how and when do you adjust the marketing strategy? So this just, again, it depends on how many butts you have on the chair for the next couple of weeks, and what kind of patient and the service that you're going to be. That's going to make the decision as to how to transition. And we may have, because we do have also clients that I refer to you, and they're like 2 years in, and they're looking to grow and expand and scale their practices. And there are different strategies for these doctors, and you have programs as well, and a different approach than you do for someone that is just getting started. So, I'm really excited. Now, my last question to you is, and then from there, if you have any last thoughts, or like, I want people to know how they can find you and where. I'm going to make sure that I have your contact information on the description of the live stream. But I want you to give my audience a quick to implement tip if they're a startup, and also a quick to implement tip if there are a 2-year-old practice looking to gain more business.
Okay. For a startup, don't skimp on your website.
Okay.
Yeah, don't do that. You'll regret it, and you'll redo it a year later, 2 years later. Happens all the time. Because when you hire your uncle or your brother-in-law or you hire a marketing company that you don't vet very well, and they're offering you, hey, we can do your website for $200 a month for a year-long contract. You're not getting what you think you're getting. And I think a lot of people think about the website as a place to give information about the practice. No, this is a tool for profit, and it should be growing your practice. It is the engine of the practice growth. And if you don't have a quality website that's optimized to perform in search rankings, just know that you're not going to be pulling in patients from the web, like, unless, you know, it's your family going to the website, right? Like, a beautiful site is great, and, you know, saving money is great. But at the end of the day, if you can spend $2 to $3 grand more and get that money back tenfold within the year, why not, right? And some considerations there, you know, just so people understand the difference, because I think there's a knowledge gap there. Usually when I have these conversations with practice owners, not all websites are created equal, right? Just like not all dentistry is created equal. And so you may have a website that you pay $2 to $3 grand for, and it looks good and it says the right things or whatever, but maybe it's copied content. Yes. So never perform in search, because the marketing company that you hired slaps, copies and pastes the same content across every website, and so Google penalizes you, flags your site, and you'll never show up in any rankings. The other thing, that's actually the majority of demo marketing companies. So just watch out for that.
This is so insightful. Thank you so much.
I see that all the time, and it infuriates me, because it's just not setting the practice. I mean, you're not going to get any value out of the website other than it being informational. So that's number one to look out for. Number two is the number of pages and the ability to talk about what you do, right? So if you sign up for like a 5 to 10 page site, once you've done your homepage, your about page, your meet the doc page, your contact page, your reviews page, that doesn't leave much, you know, space to talk about your procedures. And when people think about SEO and competing in SEO, they think about dentist near me, dentist in such and such area, right? Dentist in San Antonio. But there are thousands of variations of keyword searches that you can perform in both paid and organic, and we call those long tail searches or procedure-based searches. So if somebody's searching specifically for an extraction, they're searching specifically for wisdom teeth removal, whatever the procedure is, if you don't have the content to index in that search related to those procedures, the site won't show up. And so you're missing out on these audiences, right? These conversions. So just making sure that you get a robust, optimized for SEO, unique content site. That would be number one. And then I would say outside of that, make sure your Google business profile is optimized. If you don't hire any marketing team, if you don't do any paid ads, totally fine. Make sure your Google business profile is set up and optimized, verified, that it's all fully built out, and that you're getting those reviews on a weekly basis. As far as more established practice and what a quick thing to do, I would say I think from an established practice perspective, it's making sure that you're reviewing the data, right? That you're tracking all your marketing efforts and that you're optimizing the results of your marketing efforts and your marketing spend based on what the data is telling you, right? So if you're sending out 10,000 mailers a month and you don't have a tracking line on it or a landing page for the campaign, and you have no idea, you're just assuming, right? Because you're asking the patients where they come from. That's not a way to make business decisions and determine how to spend your marketing dollars. You have to track everything with call tracking, with Google Tag Manager, with pixel tracking. You have to know where these people are coming from and what the impacts of the marketing program are, so that ultimately you can understand the ROI. Because if there's no ROI in it, you shouldn't be doing it, right?
100%.
That would be my tip for a more established practice.
Yes. We have a comment here. I thought it was a question. And it's a great comment. It says, best advice you could give is to focus on a second to none patient experience that's worthy to talk about. Absolutely. It can be that simple. And it's best to build from that core outward rather than outside. And yes, this is for us, because I think that we're both passionate and the growth and the value that we have been able to give to the industry and as individuals has to come from our personal passion and value-driven approach when we're working with our clients. And my goal for today's live is, to give us strategies that we can implement so that we can enhance and really take advantage of all of those you know, of those tools and things that we have to offer our patients, because we really need to get them once they're in the office in order for us to give them that second to none experience for them to get to us. They have to filter out and find us through so much noise that is going on out there. And it's a disservice to them that we don't put the proper mechanics and systems in place to be able to get in front of them so that they can come in and experience that second to none, you know, patient experience in our practices or in our businesses. So
and not only that, but yes, thank you. And not only that, but like when you're working against what you're selling in an essence, right? Like 40% of, you know, people do not want to visit the dentist. They avoid it at all costs. That's why we see neglect going up. That's why we see dental emergencies going up and dental emergency practices doing so well. And, you know, it really is the fact that people have avoided going to the dentist, you know, and so when you have a patient experience that puts those comforts in place, when you offer sedation, when you create a space that feels like home to them or feels comforting to them, when you have good, those types of things are really going to be what not only gets them in the practice, keeps them in the practice, and then also creates that word of mouth cycle, right?
Yes.
So yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, you have to understand, if you are a practice owner, the majority of people don't want to call you. They will do anything they can to not call you.
But if you plan it and you've created this, you know, this reverse engineered action plan, because you've created your business plan, you understand who you're serving, you understand their needs, you are creating a strategy and understanding who you are and presenting it to them in a way that resonates with them, then it's just a win-win for everyone, because they're not going to be afraid or hesitant to come and experience seeing you in your practice, because you are building trust and awareness. And it's just, you know, giving them that, making it that much easier for them to come in and experience what you have to offer as a clinician and as an individual in your practice for them. So this is just, this has been such an amazing conversation, Nicole. Thank you so much for your time. You've been very generous, and we can go on and talk about this.
We know that.
We have to do another one. But you know, thank you for your tips and advice. It goes a long way. And tell us, how do doctors find you? The best way to get in contact with you to schedule a discovery call or strategy call with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can visit our website, transcendentalagency.com. You can submit a form on there if you want to schedule a strategy session with myself or the team. And then follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Transcendental Agency. It's the best place to really learn about our work, our methodology, the results, you know, from our clients, and about us. So check us out there as well. And then I think we have a graphic that might be going out to some of your clients as well that'll have a Calendly link in there. So
beautiful. Thank you so much, Nicole. It's been amazing talking to you. Next time you're in New York, please let me know ahead of time.
We'll do better.
We'll grab coffee together or something. Take care. Thank you, everyone who joined us. Thank you, Dr. Favor. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.